Mary has been in the industry for 5 years and is already a top-tier star. No one knows that she has someone hidden in her heart. Throughout the years, from being down and out to being in the spotlight, she has never forgotten him. I accompanied her through difficult days and finally understood that I was just a male supporting character in sweet romance stories. The male supporting character's fate is to add a touch of brilliance to the protagonist's love. But Mary said, "If my life were a script, I also have the ability to tear it up for you without hesitation." I believe her. Mary is trending again as a top star. It's not unusual for her to be in the spotlight, but this time she is trending alongside her senior, Tom, from the same agency she debuted with 5 years ago. Like a girl blessed by the purple star, she shines brightly on stage and captivates in films. At such a young age, she already holds the Best Actress trophy, yet she has never been involved in any scandal. The most talked about photo of her shows her just stepping down from a highly anticipated stage, her skirt trailing behind. Fans screamed in waves, the light hitting half of her face, fine sweat sliding down her fair neck, her eyes full of spirit, exuding an enchanting charm. But the other half of her face, shrouded in shadow, appeared indifferent, as if she were an unyielding goddess impervious to any temptation. The entry for Mary and Tom was followed by a red explosive word. It was a video from a press conference where Mary, for the first time, abandoned the grand script and chose this historical drama, The Emperor's Order, to support Tom, who was transitioning to acting for the first time. In the video, a reporter asked Mary, "What is your favorite line from the drama?" She smiled gently, portraying a female general who devoted herself to expanding the empire for the male lead. She turned her head, lowering her gaze to Tom beside her. She only reached Tom's shoulder, but still gracefully bowed like the female general who always knelt for her emperor in the drama. She was sincere, her eyes shaped like peach blossoms, slightly curved with deep affection. And she said, "I wish to be the brightest pearl on your imperial crown. I wish to expand your territory and spread your fame. I wish to be your most loyal young general. I wish to always accompany you like the stars surrounding the moon. I wish my surname could accompany you in the annals of history. I offer all of myself, my young majesty." The audience fell silent, and Tom extended his hand, smiling as he ruffled her hair on her forehead. They locked eyes, soft waves flowing between them. Suddenly, cheers erupted, flashes of cameras crossed, and countless reporters thrust microphones forward. The video froze at that moment. The comment section was in an uproar. Even Mary's fans began to celebrate. Isn't this love? The young emperor and his girl general. Who wouldn't ship that? Mary's gaze. If that's not admiration, what is? After all these years, the girl finally has a boy she likes. I unconsciously rubbed the screen where Mary shone with bright eyes, holding a galaxy of stars within them, a look I had never seen before. I sighed helplessly, leaning back resignedly, wiping away my tears. Finally, this day has come. I had entered the book long ago when I was 15, still in my second year of high school. This is a sweet romance story with Mary as the undisputed top star and a talented young actress, sharp and indifferent, yet she pours all her warmth into the male lead, Tom. She and Tom are long-lost friends. They met in high school. Mary, coming from a wealthy background, a true little princess, while Tom was a handsome arts student who transferred in. According to the plot, during their senior year, Mary's family would face a major upheaval, and the high and mighty princess would suddenly fall into the dust. In her downfall, Tom would redeem her from turning dark. Then, due to Tom going abroad and various reasons, they would reunite after many years, with Mary accompanying Tom as they flourished in the entertainment industry, and their romance would attract everyone's attention and blessings. But after I arrived, Tom went abroad much earlier than in the plot, leaving while Mary was still testing him, directly missing the scene of Mary's family's downfall. It was I who held that 18-year-old girl who lost her parents overnight, gently touching her thin spine as we slowly walked through that dark time together. She had never felt so helpless, tears streaming silently from her red eyes, as if she were clinging to the last straw of survival. I saw her return to the spotlight once again. She was indeed the most outstanding creation of the creator, and she was discovered in the entertainment industry. I want to see the premiere of her first movie. Watching her turn in the rain, covered in blood and mud, her gaze sharp as a knife while the audience around me gasped in shock. I called her as she walked the red carpet, saying, "Mary, I saw you during your first performance on stage." I was seated in the middle, the entire audience cheering and screaming for her, countless LED lights shining for her, calling out, "Mary! Mary!" I knew she would never be my girl. I was drowned in the crowd, smiling as I watched her shine brightly in the center of the stage, yet feeling a deep bitterness and helplessness in my heart. I accompanied you through the hardest days, but I also knew that your brilliant future did not belong to me. Mary might not know that the original novel of the big male lead drama that Tom starred in was written by me. I wrote about the female general, the power struggles, and love between the female general and the young emperor. But all those sweet words had to be heard again from Mary to Tom. "I am your sharpest sword, your majesty." My heartfelt words amidst the vast mountains and rivers. Please take a look. I realized countless times that no matter how long I accompanied Mary, this dazzling girl would never belong to me. But I didn't ask for much. I only hoped. For her happiness and well-being. It's time for the cannon fodder male supporting role to shed the glory that doesn't belong to you. I slowly drank a bowl of porridge, staring blankly at the small plant on the windowsill for a while, then returned to my room to pack everything up. I didn't have much, and everything fit perfectly into a small suitcase. I called Mary's phone several times, and on the third call, someone finally answered. It was Mary's assistant, George. "Mary is changing costumes." Before the words were finished, the phone was taken away, and as she walked out, she said, the noise fading away, "Hello." I hadn't intended to cry, but her clear voice still made my heart ache. I looked up, thinking of the 10 years we had walked through together, scenes retreating and surging like tides, recalling that line, "My lord," as if it were an unchangeable fate. I thought for a moment and said, "Mary, I'm leaving." She paused, stopped for a moment, and casually said, "Are you going out to relax? Are you going domestically or abroad? Are you going for a few days? Talk to Sister Sun and let her help you book a ticket. Do you want to wait a couple more days? They'll have my agent rearrange my schedule, and I'll make time to go with you. I heard there's a place with beautiful scenery." The noise around her gradually grew louder, and someone called her, "Teacher Mary, it's time to start shooting." She ignored it. I interrupted her rambling, saying, "No, I'm leaving you." I tried hard to sound like I was saying goodbye to an old friend. "Mary, goodbye." There was a moment of silence before I hung up the phone. I had always been a coward. I was afraid she would hear the unrest in my voice, and I was also afraid she would say, "Okay," with a sense of relief. This small house was bought by Mary before she became famous. At that time, I had saved a decent amount of manuscript fees and made a down payment for a 2-bedroom apartment where she and I each had a small room. Later, when she became popular, this place was no longer suitable for her. There were too many people around, and paparazzi could easily follow her. Her agent wouldn't allow her to have rumors about cohabitation during her rise to fame, and I repeatedly accompanied her to explain that it was just family, but I knew there was nothing we could do about it. I once briefly possessed the blazing starlight, but I was acutely aware that she never belonged to me. She moved to a well-hidden residential area, and her schedule became busier by the day. She always called me to talk about her new scripts and new performances, but she was too busy. Eventually, when I called her, she was always at events, filming, or preparing for the stage, and she would call me back exhausted. I felt sorry for her being so tired, so I stopped calling. I didn't have many friends here, and after work at the publishing house, I would write some things. When I was writing the Emperor's Edict, I arranged a line for the female general. She would ride back through the heavy snow with the grand royal city and thousands of troops behind her. She would dismount and kneel in the snow before the young king, saying, "I am your sharpest sword. I will expand your territory for you." At that moment, I suddenly thought of Mary. I first wanted to be her sword and shield, but I could do nothing. All I could offer was a hug. According to the plot, Mary meets Tom again when he and other boys come to the company for interviews. The book describes their encounter as they met, but she remained calm, walking briskly past Tom as if they were strangers, yet secretly signing the best contract for Tom and handing him the script for the male lead that was destined to be a huge hit. Always flamboyant, she was so cautious that Tom thought his efforts had paid off, feeling pleased with himself from his press conference. Their sweet and ambiguous romance began. I had accompanied her for so many years, and finally, the male lead appeared. I completed some work in this small house and dragged my suitcase to the door. Just as I opened the door, I realized it was raining, and the rain was heavy, making a dull thud against the heart. I was about to close the door to grab an umbrella when I found the door being pushed back with force. A pale hand propped against the door frame, with delicate wrists and a beautiful silver ring on the middle finger. I opened the door, my heart racing. Mary leaned against the door, drenched in the rain, her bangs falling between her exquisite brows. The spirited light in her eyes dimmed by half, her peach blossom eyes drooping slightly, revealing a hint of red. She was still in her costume from the crew, her wide sleeves haphazardly wrapped, and the rain flowed down her delicate nose, making it look as if she were crying. Perhaps she had rushed over, still slightly out of breath, her red lips pale, carrying a hint of anxiety, which was a stark contrast to her usual indifference, resembling a child about to be abandoned. She stubbornly looked at me, her voice a bit hoarse as she called my name. "George, where are you going?" Rainwater rolled down her jawline and neck, soaking her half-wet collar. I paused and asked, "Did you run away from the crew?" She interrupted me, looking up at me, and asked together, "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to Shanghai. It's too noisy here. I don't belong here anymore. I want to go back to Shanghai and set off fireworks on the beach at night, and I want to eat the old wontons from the shop downstairs." Her hand, propped against the door frame, turned white from the force. She softly asked, "What about me?" I saw someone moving in the hallway. She was such a highly popular star, worried about being photographed by paparazzi and passers-by. I sighed slightly, turned to the side, and gestured for her to come in. Although she hadn't lived here for a long time, her room and wardrobe were still kept. I urged her to take a hot shower, and she looked at me several times, hesitating a bit. I was both amused and annoyed, saying I wouldn't leave while she was showering. She responded with an okay. Her phone wah. Mary glanced at her phone, which was on silent, but missed calls and WeChat messages kept popping up. She turned the phone face down on the coffee table and went into the bathroom with her clothes. I received a call from her assistant, who was flustered and asked if Mary was with me. I gently replied, assuring her not to worry, that Mary would be back soon. The assistant felt relieved and called her manager to handle any potential issues from being photographed on the way. After all that, a little time passed, and I found myself momentarily distracted. She was actually working hard as a popular star. She had never acted like a diva. I accidentally clicked on one of Mary's new songs, and her voice on the phone was rarely so tender, like a confession from the stars. "You are at the center of my world, yet you feel nothing different. My peak is crowned for you. Who can know this love that doesn't burden you?" My heart felt warm as I listened while comments scrolled by. Thomas was in first place. Mary definitely contributed. The love that is subtly restrained is the most touching. I felt a bit embarrassed for being so self-indulgent just now. But according to the original plot, it should be like this. She wrote songs for him, paving the way for him, unknowingly giving him the best of her love. In high school, this love was as hot as the blazing sun. Now, after trials, it had become heavier and more subtle, like the shimmering sea under the moonlight. But it was only natural for anyone to like Mary because she was truly a wonderful person. The song was light and slow, as if she was softly singing in my ear. I lost my focus upon hearing it. Hearing Mary's voice as she came out, I instinctively looked up and paused the song as if caught in the act. Mary had changed into a white t-shirt, her collarbone peeking out. Her hair was half dry, and a shower had probably relaxed her a lot. The usual nonchalance was seeping out of her bones. Hearing that familiar melody, she paused, smiling like a little fox. Are you listening to my new song? I nodded. It's very nice, but she fell silent, a hint of red creeping up her ears, seemingly indifferent as she hummed in response. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy, and I didn't even know what to say. I had to leave in a few hours by high-speed train, and I had to say goodbye to her. Next time, don't just run off without a word. They were all very anxious. Mary had always hated lectures, but this time she quietly listened. I've already bought my ticket. It's raining outside, so you don't need to see me off. If you ever think of me sometimes, you can come find me for a beer when you pass through Shanghai. It turned out that parting wasn't about tears streaming down, but about maintaining the dignity of friendship. With restraint, she remained silent for a long time, and I sighed, getting up to leave. Who would have thought that as I passed her, she grabbed my wrist? I want to come find you for a drink. I want to occasionally pass through Shanghai. She looked up at me stubbornly, her eyes slightly red at the corners. For a moment, I thought she was going to cry. After all these years, having endured so much suffering, she had only silently cried in my arms one afternoon after losing her parents. I patiently bent down a little. Mary, have you ever thought that you just got used to my company? Actually, at that time, no matter who came to hug you, you would accept it. She froze, her face turning pale as if humiliated. She stared at me, almost biting her teeth, as she said, George, do you have a heart? It can only be you, and it will only be you. When the scene became awkward, my phone rang, just in time. I didn't know how the ringtone turned into Mary's new song, and the climax played. My peak is crowned for you. Who can know this love that doesn't burden you? I felt a bit embarrassed. Mary was still holding my wrist, so I used my other hand to answer the call. It was the crew of my Emperor's Order. They had just announced the casting and held a press conference a while ago, and they had probably filmed a small portion by now. They wanted me to join the team to oversee the plot and work with the screenwriter to refine the storyline and make revisions. I hesitated. If I joined the team, I would probably run into Mary and Tom many times, and I was just thinking of leaving. The voice on the phone was very polite. We all hope to present your work in the best possible way to the audience, so we sincerely hope you can participate. In the end, I nodded. I suddenly remembered that Mary didn't know I wrote this novel. And when I looked down, I saw her lips, which had been pursed, curling into a slight smile. She leaned back slightly, her expression relaxed, her delicate brows and eyes shining. She showed no surprise at all. I raised my voice. Do you know I wrote my Emperor's Order? She remained composed, nestled on the sofa, her long legs bent to avoid the coffee table, and lazily said, Teacher George, please give me your guidance. Just like that summer, she sat by the window, the cicadas chirping, her profile full of emotion, and she said with a smile, It's George, please give me your guidance. She was always like this, clearly never needing my help at any time. I advised Mary to keep her distance from me and said to act as if we didn't know each other. She raised her eyes reluctantly, agreeing with the sound. My Emperor's Order mainly tells the story of an emperor's journey from prince to ruler. Tom plays the male lead, and the female lead is the prime minister's daughter. The second male lead is a princess from a rival country, and the third male lead is the female general played by Mary. Her role isn't significant. It seems more like a supporting role for Tom. The crew arranged a room for me at the hotel. As I finished packing and stepped out of my room, I ran into Nicole, who plays the female lead. She entered the entertainment industry during college and pursued acting after graduation. Now, she has become a well-regarded young actress with both strength and reputation. Coincidentally, she was also my classmate. In college, our names together happened to form a couplet. The mountains are hard to cross, and we meet by chance. We had many misunderstandings during college. Nicole was wearing a mask, revealing only her dark eyes. Her temperament was on the lighter side. When she saw me, she paused for a moment, probably because her agent had mentioned me, and quickly reacted, her eyes crinkling with a smile behind a mask. So it really is you? Long time no see. George, I replied. Yeah, it was just afternoon, and the crew had a script reading session before filming. The main actors needed to read through the script together and try out their emotions. She looked at me and said, What a coincidence. Let's go together. I had no reason to refuse, so I nodded. Nicole and I had a relationship in college that was neither too close nor too distant. Her words were just the right amount of warmth, so it wasn't particularly awkward to reconnect. When we entered the room, most people had already arrived, but I immediately spotted Mary, lazily nestled in a corner. She was wearing a black pullover, one hand pressing down on the script. Her gaze lifted first to me, then glanced at Nicole beside me, her mouth curving down slightly, looking rather displeased. Once everyone was present, everyone introduced their characters. I hadn't seen Tom for a long time. He's even clearer than the photos I saw online. When our eyes met, he smiled slightly, as if it were no surprise, a typical charming young man. Everyone went over their lines, and this scene was about Mary playing the female General Song in meeting the male lead, Hangu, for the first time. Song did not come from a prestigious family. Her childhood was tragic, living on the streets, fighting with beggars for food, until the male lead appeared like a ray of light illuminating her hopeless life. She felt inferior due to the difference in status with Hangu, so she joined the army, fought hard, and became one of his subordinates. This scene depicts Song Yi, still in her teens, being beaten and in pain, covered in mud, lying in the rain, yet seeing the male lead pass by in a luxurious carriage adorned with golden bells. Mary quickly got into character. She was still wearing a childish hoodie, sitting up straight with a script in hand, but her expression was indistinguishable from that of the beggar, almost dying in the rain. She shivered from the cold, but tried hard to open her eyes, fearing that if she closed them, she would become a lifeless skeleton by the roadside. Tom read from the script, calling out to his guard's name, lazily leaning back in his chair, just like the young and privileged prince. Why? Why isn't the carriage moving? It was lying across the road, blocking the noble's carriage, and a coachman's whip was about to strike her. Jill lifted the heavy, purple curtain of the carriage, looking down from a height, lightly blocking the way. Tom read in the tone of the prince, "Forget it. She's just a beggar. Have someone take her, see a doctor, leave some silver." Song, he was almost unable to open her eyes from the rain. All she could see was a corner of the tall, luxurious carriage curtain, which was lavish and extravagant, with the pouring rain not penetrating the carriage at all. The elegant prince slightly leaned out, effortlessly giving her a way out. Mary read softly in the script. Song lay in the mud, covered in wounds, almost unable to open her eyes from the rain. Yet as if afraid that her beautiful dream in the rain would shatter, she audaciously asked, "Who are you?" The young man smiled lightly, a mix of disdain and disbelief, saying nothing, and a heavy purple curtain closed again. This was their first encounter, a dream that Song Yi would never forget in her life. Mary leaned back, and in that moment, she returned to being that indifferent girl. "I have some questions," Mary spoke. Even if Hangu extends a hand during her most difficult time, giving her a few pieces of silver, Song Yi might be grateful and repay him with her life, but she would never fall in love with him recklessly. I looked at her. Our eyes met for a second, and Mary leaned forward, her expression calm. "Unless what he gives is a warm embrace in the pouring rain, a warm embrace that can withstand all cold." Mary was very certain, as if in an instant she was Song Yi, so convinced. I was stunned, memories flooding back. I collected myself and spoke. "But that's absolutely impossible." At this time, H's character is that of a prince who has compassion for commoners, but would never easily embrace a muddy, unknown girl on the brink of death. Mary's eyes were dark, with something sparkling, swirling in the depths like a starry sky pouring in. But Tom suddenly spoke up. "But if it were a servant, it wouldn't matter, right? If a servant replaced him to give that embrace, it would make sense. But why would a servant embrace a dying beggar?" Mary leaned back, tugging at the corner of her mouth, her expression unclear. "Who knows? Maybe it's out of pity." I stared at her, suddenly remembering the year the Jais family fell from grace. The once lofty girl suddenly fell into the dirt, losing her parents and blood relatives overnight. The bellflower tossed in the wind. I slowly approached her and gently embraced that disappointed and pained version of her. Does she think this is pity? I never got an answer, but this part of the story was slightly altered. Mary, playing Song E, had a misplaced hug during their first encounter in heavy rain. After the reading session ended, I returned to the hotel. As I passed the fire escape, I was suddenly pulled into the darkness by the corner of my clothes. The door was half open, letting in a bit of light, and my palms were slightly sweaty. I was pressed against the wall with Mary in front of me. The space was very cramped, and I could smell her scent like snow in my breath. I raised my eyes and incredulously muttered, "What are you doing?" She looked up slightly, a hint of a smile in her peach blossom eyes. "You said I had to pretend not to know you in front of others, so I can only talk to you. Here, right?" I leaned back, uncomfortably tilting my head to appear more confident, but inadvertently brushed my chin against her forehead. The warm touch barely lingered a moment. Silence passed. I asked, "What is it?" Someone walked by in the hallway. It seemed to be her assistant, looking for her, murmuring that Mary had just been there, and suddenly disappeared. When I turned back, I met her dark eyes. The scattered smile had vanished, and the light seeping in from the fire escape door faintly illuminated her face, which was deemed the pinnacle of the entertainment industry, making it even more profound and charming. She licked her lips, one hand pressed against the wall, and raised her head to barely reach my lips level. She bit her lips several times, but still couldn't speak. I genuinely felt she was as nervous as I was. No matter how grand the occasion or stage, Mary had never had stage fright. Yet in this silent, intimate space, in this small audience fire escape, she had to think many times before she could say a word. She softly asked, "Who would be willing to give a hug to someone who has fallen into the abyss?" I looked at her drooping peach blossom eyes, unable to tell if she was asking about Song E in the play or Mary in reality. When Mary was 18, she didn't have a glamorous birthday party like a princess. First, Tom silently went abroad, and the flowers she had for her confession became useless. Then the JIS family went bankrupt. Her father committed suicide in prison out of guilt, and her mother couldn't bear the blow and passed away. In an instant, she went from a girl surrounded by flowers and praise to a state of being orphaned and destitute. At that time, I searched all over Shanghai and found her in an old alley, leaning against a crumbling cement wall, the setting sun falling down and the freshly picked flowers rolling in the dirt. I had found her, but I didn't dare to approach. I wasn't Tom, and to her, I was probably just someone who knew her name, who would want their vulnerable and fallen moments exposed to unrelated people. What was I thinking back then? I just looked at her sadly, thinking that maybe, just maybe, she needed a hug. I had nothing, but I had a hug. I slowly walked over. She leaned against the wall and glared at me fiercely, but there was clearly a hint of red in her eyes when she saw it was me. She froze, silently looking down at the flowers on the ground, and my heart ached. I thought she would tell me to go away, but she just gritted her teeth like a wounded little beast. She turned her face away, covering her eyes with her palm, and I saw tears seeping through her fingers. The once proud girl was as fragile as snow under the setting sun. At that moment, the sunset fell into my heart. I had never been so brave in my life. I took a step forward and gently hugged her. "Don't be sad. I will always be with you. I will always be with you." Now, 25-year-old Mary asks me, who would hug someone who has fallen into the abyss? My palms were sweaty, and I lowered my eyes, saying I don't know. Mary stepped closer, her brows and eyes cold, and self-deprecatingly said, "You don't know? Then let me tell you. Do you know what pity is?" George, seeing sign covered in mud and unable to go on. Some people would show their pity by giving her silver coins, while others would offer a hug. "And what about you? What do you think?" I was taken aback. She gently leaned closer to me, as if sighing, as if pleading, the light and shadow falling in her eyes. Tomorrow's scene, where Song E first meets the heavy rain. The script has been changed last minute, and I haven't found a suitable role to embrace sign. It's just a few seconds of footage. Come and act with me. Don't be afraid. I guide you. No one else can do it but you. I studied her brows and eyes seriously, a hint of madness mixed with her beauty, and she pleaded, "Just consider it as accompanying me for the last time. Then just this stretch of road, I will accompany you once more the last time." I softly agreed. She was too close to me, her breath filling the space between us. My heart felt as if buried in snow, clearly freezing to death, yet I couldn't help but be moved by her. I walked out, and she didn't stop me. Just as I was about to reach the door, she suddenly called out to me. I turned around, and Mary's brows and eyes were shrouded in light and shadow. She looked at me quietly and said, "George." I thought she was going to say something, but she simply said softly, "Good night." As I slipped out through the fire escape, I tiptoed and glanced around as if I had truly done something shameful, and Mary behind me let out a light laugh. The next day, during the scene where Sign first meets Hangu, because I had an extra part that I didn't know how I got, the director asked Tom to have his makeup artist do my makeup as well while he was at it. Tom's makeup room was separate, and just as I was about to knock on the door outside, I vaguely heard my name through the door. My suspended finger paused, not falling inside the makeup room. Tom's assistant asked, "Bro, why did you open your mouth to let him share your part? This role is really inexplicable." Tom smiled ambiguously. "Do you think I really wanted to bring it up? It's her." He suddenly fell silent, then spoke again. "Forget it. Anyway, it's a role that doesn't even count as a male supporting character. Whether he adds it or not doesn't matter. It won't affect anything. Just let him experience what it means to be a supporting role." I expressionlessly retracted my hand, but when I turned around, I saw Nicole standing right behind me, probably having heard everything. I felt a bit awkward, pointed at the door, and mouthed, "It'll wait a bit before going in." Nicole couldn't help but smile slightly, and she gently said, "You're so calm even after being talked about." "George," I softly replied, "No, not calm at all." What she said was also true. Whether in the play or out of it, I was a role that didn't even count as a male supporting character. By the time filming started, it was pouring rain, and the crew didn't. I didn't need to worry about anything else. I played the role of Hong's attendant, and as the car moved through the heavy rain, we encountered an obstacle, a dying girl lying in the mud. I stood up and lifted the curtain for Hong to take a look. The carriage was very close to the girl in the mud, and from my angle, I could see the rain pooling in the small hollows on either side of her high nose. The road, beaten down by the rain, was muddy and difficult to navigate, and the girl, dirty and tattered, curled up in the wet, cold mud with a faint trace of blood spreading around her. A long time ago, a very harsh film critic said she was breathtakingly ethereal, and someone like me, with no acting experience, was instantly drawn into the scene by Mary. She was the most desperate girl, a beggar whom only ruthless rain in this world would deign to pity. Song Yi's eyelids fluttered twice. The rain pounded on her wounds and into her eyes. Her face was incredibly pale, yet she still strained to lift her gaze, looking at me through the heavy curtain of rain. I even thought I saw a hint of pale yellow in her eyes. Behind her, it was only the rain pouring down. She was a beggar, a discarded child of the world with nothing at all. Hong's voice came from behind. "Shirai, what's wrong?" I snapped back to reality from the shock of her gaze and replied, "There's a dying beggar blocking the way. The carriage can't go any further." S's black hair spread out, mingling with the mud. She looked up at the carriage, and I shouldn't have lifted the curtain for her. Awkwardly curling her hand, she tried to struggle to her feet, but her legs were broken. She had no choice but to crawl slowly to the roadside, falling back into the mud without a sound, the rain drenching her completely. That moment struck me like nothing else. I understood why the attendant would want to give her a hug, who, in their downfall, could still preserve a shred of pride and dignity. Anyone who saw her should be moved. I thought of 18-year-old Mary after the Jais family collapsed when flowers no longer lingered for her, and malice surged in. After that embrace, I didn't see her for a long time. The first time I found her again was at dusk. They said the Jis family left behind many debts, and Mary was living in great hardship then. In a novel, it was just a few lines, but seeing it with my own eyes, it was years of a proud girl's life. It was the first time I heard Mary apologizing softly and humbly to others, begging. The debt collectors were ruthless, making things difficult for a little girl, specifically sending thugs to harass her every day. I showed up earlier than Mary every day, driving those thugs away. Until one day, I couldn't. When I leaned against the wall to stand up and walk out, I found Mary standing in the shadows just a wall away. I didn't know how long she had been there, silently crying as she looked at me. The sky outside was so beautiful, with the sunset filling the sky. She handed me a Band-Aid, said something to herself, and turned to leave. I followed her at a distance, slowly walking through the bustling crowd. The long street gradually dimmed as people thinned out. She stopped and, after a long time, turned to look at me directly. She stared at the bruise at the corner of my eye and lip, fiercely defiant. "How long have you been following me? How long do you want to watch the joke?" I looked up. "I just want to keep you company." She tugged at the corner of her mouth coldly, saying, "I don't need it. Do you understand?" My eyes stung, and I turned away. I knew she didn't need my company, but what could I do? I was powerless. She suddenly softened her voice. "Don't cry. Just leave me alone. Go back." In that moment, Mary unexpectedly merged with Sign, who was in the rain and mud before me. I got out of the carriage, the umbrella collapsing in the heavy rain, cold to the bone. I gently embraced her, as if across time and space, hugging the Mary of years ago. I whispered, "The mountains are high and the road is long. Cherish your life." The sound of rain faded away, and I heard her hot heartbeat in the cold rain. 18-year-old Mary, 25-year-old Mary, the road is still long. The director called cut for this scene, and I was still holding Mary. The assistant hurriedly came over with an umbrella to shield us from the rain. I saw her dark, bright, and stubborn eyes beneath her wet bangs, and my heart warmed. I let go of her hand, and her warm hand brushed against my skin. After changing clothes in the dressing room, I unexpectedly ran into Nicole. She handed me a cup of warm ginger tea. Outside, I was taken aback for a moment, and she smiled, saying to drive away the cold. I thanked her and took it, drinking it. Warm indeed helped, but I couldn't stand the ginger taste and could only sip it little by little. Nicole is beautiful, a bit like a goddess in the entertainment circle. Someone had previously edited a video pairing her with Mary, and I couldn't help but smile when I thought of that video. Nicole raised an eyebrow. "What's wrong?" I shook my head, suppressing my laughter. "Just thought of something happy." Nicole didn't press further and said with a smile, "Your first time acting, and you were getting into character quite well." Hearing her say that made me relax a bit. I was just afraid of not performing well and dragging down the quality of this star-level drama. I silently thought that being able to get into character was also because I saw Mary in the rain. She had no lines, but every movement was filled with heartache. I was still thinking about Tom, who seemed hesitant. Who would have thought I would play such a role? Was it Mary? But then why, after getting drenched in the rain and drinking hot tea, did my mind feel a bit lazy? Just as I was about to speak, I saw Mary's figure. She walked over holding a cup, her complexion not looking too good and her lips pale. She naturally took the warm ginger tea I had just sipped and, without acknowledging Nicole, handed me another cup, saying, "If you can't drink ginger, then don't. Shia's son just bought you a hot one." Drink her attitude was familiar, but her gaze was not very polite. After speaking, she stuffed her hands into her pockets and casually looked up, exuding a strong sense of aggression. "Does Nicole have something to do?" Nicole smiled with her lips pressed together, glanced at me, and maintained her smile. "Since you two have something to discuss, I'll take my leave." I watched Nicole walk away, feeling a bit helpless. Didn't we say we'd pretend we don't know each other and aren't familiar? Mary scoffed coldly, her voice clearly aggrieved. "Sure, George, you told me to pretend not to know, but with her, you're forcing yourself to drink ginger tea you don't like while chatting happily." I keenly sensed her hostility towards Nicole. "Did you have a conflict before?" Mary fell silent for a moment, turned her eyes away, and awkwardly said no. She added, "Not really." She didn't say anything. "It's just my one-sided issue." Quite assertive. "All right, Miss Mary." During a break on set, I passed by Nicole. On her tablet was the recently aired episode, right at the scene where Song E first meets Honggu, stopping just at the moment when the attendant hugs Song E in the heavy rain, the rain rolling down her face like tears. Mary's face is truly a glory of creation, beautiful from every angle. Nicole took off her headphones and called me over, pointing to the empty seat next to her. I instinctively glanced around, and Nicole chuckled lightly. "Don't worry, she's not here." Nicole turned her head and smiled. Her aura was cool. In the drama, she was the prime minister's daughter, and outside of it, she was a cool goddess. When she smiled, it felt like a gentle stream flowing. She has a lot of hostility towards me. I shook my head. I didn't know the reason either. Nicole lifted her tablet, and I curiously leaned over to look, seeing myself appear on screen, feeling quite novel. I didn't expect it to air so soon. Nicole let out a sound and suddenly spoke. No one expected her to come and play Song E. My interest was suddenly covered by snow, and I withdrew my gaze, responding with a yes indeed. Who would have thought that such a proud person would be willing to go to such lengths for a Tom? I looked into the distance where a large group of crew members and countless cameras surrounded Mary and Tom. They were rehearsing, but I couldn't see clearly through so many people. Nicole followed my gaze and smiled, saying because of Tom. However, she suddenly paused, her beautiful fingers lightly tapping on the small table. After a long time, I finally chuckled. "George, you really are quite slow." I turned around, and Nicole said, "You can't possibly be unaware that Mary is very different with you, right? Just like a long time ago, back in college, the whole school knew I liked you, but you were the only one who didn't." I was taken aback. Nick's words were too sudden, and I didn't know how to respond. She laughed lightly, resting her forehead against her hand. "That was many years ago. Don't be nervous." I remembered what Tom had said in the dressing room, that someone who wasn't even a supporting character couldn't affect the plot. I shook my head. She wasn't like this before. Now I paused and added, "She's just gotten too used to me being around for so long. She doesn't want me to leave." Nicole patiently replied, as if teaching a clueless junior in school. "Many people want to get close to Mary. Why is it only you she keeps around? George, you should take a look for yourself." I found myself at a loss for words. Nicole changed the subject. "Did you just watch the show? The reviews are really good." While I was lost in thought, filming had wrapped up, and Mary walked towards us against the light, surrounded by a golden glow. Her peach blossom eyes half opened. She glanced at me and Nicole with a neutral expression. The director was very pleased with the recent shoot, beaming with joy upon seeing me and Nicole. He couldn't help but recite, "The mountains are hard to cross. Who mourns the lost traveler meeting by chance? We are but guests in a foreign land." Mary impatiently stopped, casting a cold glance at the director, making him swallow his next words. She probably found it uninteresting too, turned around, and walked away in another direction. Nicole lifted her chin, signaling, "What, not going to cheer her up?" I watched her retreating figure, feeling somewhat powerless, and shook my head. "Forget it, I'm tired." In fact, the other plot lines hadn't changed much. The show was being filmed and aired simultaneously, and the real filming had already reached the part where Honggu was about to rise to power amidst intrigue. Well, only the first episode had been released online. When I went online, I saw the completed episodes because it had been announced early on that Mary had scenes in the first episode, generating a lot of buzz. I closed the barrage of comments and focused on the show. The beginning featured some daily life and background setup for Honggu, and by the end of the episode, it was the scene of the heavy rain. I was lost in thought for a long time, opened the comments, and watched it again. From a uniform, "I feel so sorry for S. How can Mary be in the mud?" To a hug, "She got a hug. Is this a supporting CP? I'm shipping it, guys." Mary's acting is absolutely amazing. I was watching on my tablet in the lounge, just finishing up and getting ready to put it away when suddenly a voice came out. "You two are quite popular online." Tom was standing in front of me, probably having caught a glimpse. His assistant's voice was a bit sharp. This was originally Tom's part. The words weren't very pleasant. I straightened my back and raised my eyes. Tom smiled and replied to his assistant, "Oh well, it's just a few lines for a minor role. It's just that Mary is popular, so there are more people shipping her. I asked in confusion, but you were the table read too, right? If there were objections, why didn't you say anything? Tom probably didn't expect me to counter him. His smile faltered a bit. I didn't take his small dissatisfaction to heart. The assistant spoke again. In a while, Mary will have a new song coming out with an MV, and Tom will be the male lead. Who cares about this little bit of traffic? I paused in my packing, suddenly remembering that this was indeed the case. According to the original plot, Mary would have a new song next, and the male lead for the MV was naturally assigned to Tom, elevating him to new heights. I lowered my eyes. It was quite good. Everything follows the original plot development, and I naturally withdraw. No need to waver anymore. At the filming site, the communication between Tom and Mary is basically zero, but who can know the love that has been accumulated over the years behind this? Suddenly, I hear a teasing voice from a girl, and the newcomer scoffs, half leaning against the doorframe. Her peach blossom eyes are filled with affection when she smiles, but when she doesn't, like now, she appears cold. Mary leans against the door and lazily retorts, "Oh, is that so?" Tom and his assistant look over, their faces a bit pale. "How come I didn't know I have a new song?" Tom calls out to her. Mary lifts her eyelids and coldly enunciates, "Are we that familiar?" I glance at Mary, then at Tom, but Mary suddenly looks at me, her peach blossom eyes smiling, suddenly dispersing the cold wind and petals flying. She extends her hand. "George, aren't you coming over?" She makes me wait outside for a while, and after about a minute, she comes out, vaguely saying she's fine. Mary hums, "You didn't come to comfort me, so I had to come find you. But how come as soon as I arrive, I see you being bullied?" "George," I realize belatedly that Mary is standing up for me, and my heart leaps with joy. But I still remind her he's Tom. Mary moves closer to me, her scent like fresh snow. "What's wrong with Tom?" I am at a loss for words. How should I say it? Tom is the ambiguous person at your press conference, the one you're willing to support, the male lead arranged in your life script. In the end, I just softly say, "He's your male lead." Mary pauses, looking into my eyes, and slowly says, "He is not." She steps closer, her red lips pressed tightly. "George, you asked me if I'm used to having you by my side, and I say I have never been used to it. But I also want to ask you, after all these years you've accompanied me, is it just because of a little pity for me? You don't ask about the press conference. You don't ask why I want you to play Shia. You seem like an incredibly noble person, giving a little light to someone in the abyss. And when she finally climbs up without saying much, you just want to exit." Mary's peach blossom eyes are tinged with red, a tear hanging on her lower lashes, as if a deity suddenly has a soft spot. She suddenly reaches out and lightly hugs me, as gentle as a feather's touch, yet full of the scent of snow. Mary softly says, "You should go." My eyes feel a bit sore, and I feel like I'm about to cry. I say, "Mary, but what if life is a script? Whether it's me, you, Tom, or Nicole, we are all characters in a script. Fate has been predetermined from the beginning. My life is not a script that can be decided. Please believe me. Even if this is a script, I have the power to revise it." Mary indeed has the power to revise the script. At least in this play, she has done it. She has managed to let the audience fill in the gaps of her, and she has entangled love and hatred through the first episode's embrace in the rain and a series of performances, without adding lines or changing the script. Still, at the filming site, I sit beside the monitor, and Mary, without looking up, scrolls through her phone, a smirk on her lips, looking quite pleased. I glance at her several times before she leisurely gives me a look, arrogantly asking what. I turn my head and say nothing, but she picks up her phone and holds it up in front of me, showing the comment from netizens about Shia and Sanjing. I look at the screen, full of exclamation marks, feeling a headache, but I still smile slightly. She tilts her face, the perfect goddess in profile. I bring up that press conference. Mary glances at me sideways, finally willing to ask me. She tugs at the corner of her mouth and casually says, testing the fans' attitude towards my love life. I ask again, and Mary turns to look at me seriously. I felt for a long time that Tom's presence is very important to you. If you think I have deep feelings for him, you should come in and understand for yourself. It's not about avoiding. If you get closer, you'll realize that all these years you've been at the center of my whole world. The voices around faded away, and I suddenly realized that this world isn't just a cold sheet of paper being opened, and everyone's fate isn't predetermined. I am not anyone's supporting character. I am the master of my own life. If I don't even have the courage to reach out, how can I say I truly love? After my Emperor's Order aired, the ratings were extremely high, and the reviews were great. After work, I still decided to return to Shanghai. When I was packing my luggage, Nicole came to knock on the door to bid me farewell. She said some polite words, and at the end, leaning against the door, she said to me, "Actually, I've met Mary a long time ago." I waited for her to continue, puzzled. She had a hint of apology in her eyes. It was during our university anniversary. After the event, we went out to eat, and I was about to confess to you. Then, those people started to make a fuss, and she looked at me from a distance for a while before leaving. That look was so sad. I only realized she came to find you after she left, and in the end, she didn't say anything to you. I suddenly recalled what 20-year-old Mary looked like. There was a time she stood under a street light, trying to light a cigarette, but trembling so much that she couldn't get it lit. She took a step back with a cold expression, her back slightly hunched, asking me if I felt sorry for her. Now I know she came to find me. Mary wasn't at the set today. I received her message only after I got on a high-speed train. She sent me a question mark. I saw that it showed the other. The party was typing for a long time before finally sending 4 words, "Be careful on the road." After a while, she sent 2 more words, "Wait for me." I replied, "Okay." The first thing I did when I got home was to eat at the old wonton shop downstairs. I had become a familiar face to the owner, and she smiled and asked me, "Why didn't you come eat with your girlfriend?" "My girlfriend?" "Yes, that pretty little girl. Ever since you went to university, she often comes here to eat. I've been into the wonton. The skin was thin and the filling generous." A song was playing in the shop. It just so happened to be one of Mary's songs from a while ago. "You are at the center of my world, yet I feel nothing different. My glory is crowned for you. Who can know this love that doesn't burden you?" I suddenly realized that perhaps all these years I had never been the only one following her. My Emperor's Order continued to be popular, updating 2 episodes a week. I was still feeling sad, so I went out for a walk at dusk and happened to see a large LED screen hanging on a building announcing that Mary's concert would be held in Shanghai in a week. The phone rang, and I picked it up casually. There was a long silence on the other end. I looked up at the LED screen. The giant poster showed Mary with her eyes half closed. The lighting was excellent, making it hard to look away. At the top, 3 words were displayed: Aurora Borealis. After a long time, she finally called out, "George." I smiled and said, "Happy wrap-up, Mary." I thought for a moment and mustered the courage to add, "She knows." I hung up the phone. After Mary debuted, she kept her information tightly under wraps, maintaining a high profile while being very low-key, not participating in variety shows or anything. But suddenly, a video was released. It was a video from my university anniversary where she was at the edge of the crowd. The camera caught her. The pixel quality wasn't high, but she was staring intently at the stage, her expression rarely relaxed, tired yet affectionate. The video was only a few seconds long, but it caused a huge stir. Fans were discussing this video, tracing back the clues almost to Mary's Weibo account, which hadn't been updated for hundreds of years. Finally, it posted a message, "Don't talk about it." It seemed like the fans understood something and collectively fell silent, as if the whole world was cooperating with her. Some of Mary's older videos were dug up, showing her being sidelined in roles and targeted by her teammates. People realized that this girl had once had dull eyes and had experienced setbacks. Who picked her up and dusted her off after all these years of hard work? Was it also to one day stand tall again? But when that day came, it was just as difficult as it was for others, making little progress. When Mary's concert started, I bought a ticket and entered with those who loved her. The venue was filled with light sticks, and I blended into the crowd, listening to them sing her songs and love her, feeling very at peace. The entire venue was dark, with only her on stage shining brightly. It was the first time I heard Mary sing Aurora all the way through. From the Aurora sneaks into the polar night, embracing her at 18 to my peak is crowned for you. The audience listened in silence. She looked just like her most popular photo, with light illuminating half of her face while the other half was in shadow. She should have appeared as an indifferent goddess, but as she played the piano, her eyes were filled with softness. Thus, the deity felt tonight, half radiant, half silent. She was the most captivating light in the venue, distant yet shocking as she sang her own Aurora. After Aurora ended, the audience remained quiet for a long time. Deep emotions were contagious, and everyone was moved by her. Mary suddenly laughed, breaking the silence. She said, "Sorry, what I said at the My Emperor's Order press conference a while ago was a lie. My favorite line isn't that long line." She lowered her eyes with a smile. "I only say one thing. I hope to be remembered together with his name." These two sentences carried a lot of weight. One denied the possibility of a relationship with Tom, and the other indicated she indeed had someone in mind. The scene was like boiling water. Mary scanned the audience and looked in my direction, knowing she couldn't possibly see me among so many people. I still instinctively held my breath. "He's my Aurora." She once asked me if I would fall in love with whoever came close to me during my hardest times. She replied firmly, tilting her head slightly back, the starlight swirling in her eyes like unshed tears. Just as she locked eyes with me, "No, no one can come close to me except you. It can only be you. It must be you. It can only be you. It must be you. Thank you for your arrival, my Aurora. From 18 to 25, I love you the most. I only love you." She shared all her brilliance with me. Mary paused for a long time. The audience almost thought Mary was present. But then Mary turned around. "Thank you all for coming, but there's no need to speculate too much about who he is. My peak can crown him, but it cannot add any burden to him." In the end, despite the difficult mountains to cross, I found someone to walk with. The audience fell silent for a moment before erupting in screams. Mary confesses directly, climbing to the top of the trending list. The wonton shop was still open at night. As soon as I walked in, I saw 2 bellflowers on the table. The owner saw me and smiled, saying, "Young man, your girlfriend just left. She just put these flowers here." I raised my eyebrows in surprise, but still suppressed my urge to go find Mary, slowly finishing a bowl of wontons. After paying, I casually took one of the bellflowers with me. The sky was getting dark, and Shanghai by the sea was slightly cool at night. There was no one on the road, and the sea breeze tousled my hair, yet my heart was very calm. I thought to myself, if I walk slowly, I will eventually meet her after all these years. What's the rush? I walked all the way to the beach where the evening breeze was gentle. Reluctantly, I turned around, and Mary was walking towards me with 2 cans of beer. She was wearing a white dress, and since there was no one around, she had taken off her face covering. She walked quickly, with a crescent moon hanging in the sky behind her, shining brightly. My mood surged like the tide. It was also calm like the sea surface. It felt like I'd been waiting for this moment for so many years. She lowered her head, and I didn't know what to say. She lit up the fairy wand she had taken from her pocket, her eyes filled with tenderness. She handed the wand to me, saying, "This is for you." She restrained her exuberance and looked at me seriously, her ears slightly flushed, as if time had turned back to when she was 18. Cautious yet joyful, I said, "I like you." I knew I felt the same. I turned back time just to meet you. Her hand slipped into my fingers, warm and dry like spring blooming in a hidden corner. I lowered my head and placed a kiss on her lips, cool like the moonlight. After years of affection, I finally got my wish fulfilled. I once thought I was the male supporting character in a book, not knowing that someone had quietly placed me in her heart year after year. You must also be someone's Northern Lights.